안녕하세요, 여러분. Welcome back to Korean Lessons with Frank. So this is going to be a continuation of lesson 1, which, as you recall, we talked all about the vowels in the Korean language. In this lesson, we are going to cover the consonants. So the vowels were pretty easy, but unfortunately the consonants get a little more complicated. To help you in understanding how the consonants work, I am going to first introduce a few linguistic concepts. Voicing refers to vibrating your vocal cords in order to produce sound. For instance, B is a voiced consonant, whereas P is not. Other than voicing, these letters are identical. The same can be said for D, which is a voiced consonant, versus P, which is an unvoiced consonant. Both of those are identical other than voicing. You can also say the same thing for V versus F and G versus K. Voicing is important for many of the basic consonants in Korean. Another important concept is aspiration, which is not something which comes up in English as often as it does in Korean. In Korean, however, aspiration is incredibly important. Aspiration is essentially just adding an extra amount of air to an unvoiced consonant. For instance, you could do P versus P, 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 T, 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 cat, 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 cat. In English, most ending consonants are aspirated, such as cat or hop and take. However, in Korean, this does not occur. So these words would be cat, hop, and te. This is something which will take some practice and leads to some strange pronunciation, but we'll talk about that more in the future. For now, let's just focus on learning the actual pronunciations of these letters. Now, I decided to split the consonants into 3 broad categories, which we'll call standard, aspirated, and tensed. I don't know if other people would group them in the same way, so take my groupings with a grain of salt. The aspirated and tensed consonants are both constituents of standard consonants. So we'll just go through the list of standard ones and bring up the tensed and aspirated ones as they come up. Each of these letters has a name, which we'll bring up as we go. And most of them are fairly closely linked to letters that you can find on the IPA chart, although the IPA chart does not take into account tensing and aspiration. So that's just something that you'll have to pick up on. Also, many of the standard consonants will change between being voiced or unvoiced depending on their surroundings. The way that I like to think of it is that each of the syllable blocks is being squished together, and so all of the sounds can change depending on how they get smashed up next to each other. Some letters which can be found at the end of syllable blocks are voiced and some are not. The way this affects voicing is if the syllable block before a letter ended in a voiced sound, then the next letter will automatically begin with a voiced sound. If it did not, then if that standard letter could have been voiced or not, then it will not be voiced. And the first letter in a word will never be voiced unless it was always going to be voiced in the first place. Now, every vowel is a voiced sound, so if the syllable block before ended in a vowel, then the next syllable block will always begin voiced. Some ending consonants are voiced, and some are not. We will talk about those as they come up, so you'll just have to learn which ones those are. It's going to take time, don't worry. It's going to be confusing, but you'll catch on eventually. And right now it probably doesn't make too much sense to you, but as we learn more letters, it might start to catch on. So without further ado, let's learn our first consonant. I personally think that the best letter to start with is Yung, since this letter is found in the names of almost every letter, so you need to know what role it will serve in a word. Now, Yung is kind of strange because if it's the first letter in a syllable block, it is silent. Although if it is the last letter in a syllable block, it becomes a nasal velar stop. Nasal means that it is voiced, but the voice comes out from the nose, and velar means that you use the back of your tongue up against the back of your throat. It is represented by this letter on the IPA chart. Fun fact, this letter used to be part of the English alphabet, but people kept confusing it with the letter N, and also it was difficult to find printers which had this letter. So eventually it was just removed from the English alphabet, and it was replaced by NG. Man, I should make a linguistics channel for that kind of stuff. Anyway, because this letter is silent at the beginning of a syllable block, and every syllable block must begin with a consonant, if you want to begin a syllable block with a vowel sound, you must include this letter in the beginning. For this reason, this is most likely the most common letter in the entire Korean alphabet. Now, yung has no tensed version. However, I do like to think of hy as being an aspirated form of yung. So hy is technically a glottal fricative, meaning you restrict airflow with your glottis, which is down near your vocal cords, but you might as well just think of it as an H. When hy is an ending consonant, it forms a glottal stop, similar to nuh-uh. Although this seems to be fairly rare, as the only example that I know of is the word 좋아요. Now we'll move on to the first of our more standard letters in the Korean alphabet. The first one we'll look at is hy, which is the first one which can change between being voiced or unvoiced, depending on its surroundings. Hy is a velar plosive consonant. Like we said earlier, velar means back of tongue against back of throat, and what plosive means is you build up some air which then comes out in a burst. You can think of plosives as explosives. Most Korean letters are shaped to resemble the sound that they make. So with hy, the top line represents the roof of your mouth, and the bottom line represents your tongue coming from the back down. G, k, k. When hy is voiceless, it is pronounced and romanized like a K, and when it is voiced, it is pronounced and romanized like a G. When hy is the ending consonant of a syllable block, it is a voiceless velar stop with no aspiration. So in English, this would be pronounced as coke, but in Korean, this would be ko. Coke, ko. Coke, ko. In English, this would be cake, but in Korean, this would be cake. Cake, cake. Cake, cake. Hy has both an aspirated and tensed form, and we'll look at the aspirated form first. When changing to an aspirated form of a letter, usually 1 or 2 lines are added to the letter to represent the extra airflow. For hy, this is added inside the tongue, like this. Aspirated letters are never voiced, and the airflow difference is very significant. So this would be kaga, whereas this would be kaka. Kaga, kaka. Kaga, kaka. And this would be kogo, whereas this would be koko. Kogo, koko. Kogo, koko. I'm in love with the koko. Hy, as an ending consonant, is identical to kyo. And now we'll look at the tensed form of hy. So there are 5 tensed letters in Korean, and they are all written as just a standard letter twice. Their names are all sang, and then the derivative letter that they came from. So for this first one, it is sangkyo. There is some disagreement as to what exactly tensing does to a letter, but the 2 main things which seem to be true of all of the tensed letters is that they are never voiced, and the vowel in the syllable block that they are a part of becomes higher pitched. So as an example, this would be kaga, whereas this would be kaka. Kaga, kaka. Kaga, kaka. This is kogo, and this is koko. Kogo, koko. Kogo, koko. Sanghyuk, as an ending consonant, behaves identically to hy. So hyuk, sanghyuk, and kyuk all behave identically as ending consonants. All right, we'll move on to our next standard letter. The next one we are looking at is pyo. Pyo is a bilabial plosive. Bilabial means using both lips, and as we already said, plosive means building up air to explode. The unvoiced pronunciation and romanization of pyo is a P, and the voiced romanization and pronunciation is a B. So this would be paba, 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 paba. And this is pobo, pobo, pobo. As an ending consonant, pyup is a voiceless bilabial stop with no aspiration. So in English, this is hop, whereas this is hop, 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 hop. In English, this is pope, whereas this is pope, 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 pope. Pyup also has both an aspirated and tensed form, and this is the aspirated form here. Now this one changes a little more than the last one did, and of course this would be pronounced pyo. So if this were paba, then this would be papa, paba, papa, paba, papa. Pyup is identical to pyup as an ending consonant. And of course, the tensed version of pyup is sangpyo. Remember that tensed just means that it is of a higher pitch and that it is voiceless. So if this was paba, then this would become papa, paba, papa, paba, papa. And if this were oba, then this would become opa, oba, opa, oba, opa.
오빠!
Sangpyeop will never be an ending consonant. The next standard letter that we'll look at is tig. Tig has kind of a strange name compared to most of the other letters. Notice that it has this kyop in it, just kind of a strange thing. Now tig is an alveolar plosive. Alveolar refers to this little ridge right behind your teeth. You'll notice there's a little bump right behind your teeth, and then that falls off into the roof of your mouth. That bump is the alveolar ridge. So this letter involves the interaction between the tip of your tongue and this alveolar ridge. And once again, plosive just means explosive. Most Korean consonants are plosive. So like we said, you use the tip of your tongue against this alveolar ridge to form this plosive. When unvoiced, it is romanized and pronounced as a T. When it is voiced, it becomes a D. So this is Tata, 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 and this is TD, TD, TD. Tigit, as an ending consonant, is an unvoiced alveolar stop. So in English, this would be hot, whereas in Korean, this would be hot, 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 hot. In English, this would be heat, and in Korean, this is heat, 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 heat. Tigit also has both an aspirated and tensed form, and this is the aspirated form right here. Tyut. Tyut basically just looks like a capital letter E. Interestingly, tyut has a more standard name than tigit. Maybe they wanted more clarity? You know the drill by now. If this is tada, then that makes this tata. Tada, tata. Tada, tata. And if this is tiri, then this would be titi. Tiri, titi. Tiri, titi. Tyut is always romanized as a T, and as an ending consonant, it behaves identically to tigit. The tensed form of tigit is, of course, sangtigit, and just like the other tensed letters, tigit is always voiceless and is pronounced with a higher pitch. So this would be tata, 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 and this would be titi, titi, titi. Tigit also can never be a final consonant. The next letter we'll look at is ch, which is a little more complicated to explain from a pronunciation perspective. Tyut is an alveolar plosive followed by a post-alveolar fricative. So we already covered the alveolar plosive part, that's what tigut is, and a post-alveolar fricative means that you pull the tongue back behind that alveolar ridge and constrict the airflow with your tongue to perform this kind of sound. Shh, shh, shh. It's identical to if you were shushing someone. Shh, shh. Now we have this exact same consonant pair in English. If you were to write a CH, that would be pronounced the same as chio. So you can find it in words like chess, chase, and charity. When voiced, we would usually write this sound in English if it's at the beginning of a word as a J, and if it's at the end of the word, we would write it as a DGE. So it can be found in words like justice, hedge, or if you want both, you can find it in judge. So this example would be 찾아, 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 and this would be 쳐줘, 쳐줘, 쳐줘. When tiot is an ending consonant, it is an unvoiced alveolar stop, making it identical to tigut. Tiot is the last letter, which will have both an aspirated and tensed form of it. The aspirated form is tiot, which looks like tiot with a little hat on top of it. Let's look at some pronunciation. So this would be 치즈, and this would be 치츠. 치즈, 치츠. 치즈, 치츠. This is 쳐줘, and this is 쳐쳐. 쳐줘, 쳐쳐. 쳐줘, 쳐쳐. As an ending consonant, 쳐 has the same pronunciation as 쳐, and therefore has the same pronunciation as tigut. The tensed form of tiot is 상tiot. You know the drill, unvoiced, higher pitch. So if this is 자주, that makes this 자주. 자주, 자주. 자주, 자주. And if this was 제제, this would be 제제. 제제, 제제. 제제, 제제. 상tiot can also never be a final consonant. The next letter we'll look at is 시옷, which looks like tiot without the top. This is an alveolar fricative, which is very similar to the English letter S. But if it is followed by E, then it becomes a post-alveolar fricative, which makes it sound more like an SH. We mentioned post-alveolar fricatives when talking about tiot. Tiot is never voiced, and let's look at some examples. Remember that the Y compound vowels are an E plus the vowel. So if tiot is before a Y compound vowel, it becomes SH rather than S. So this is shasu, this is shisasu, and this is sashu. When tiot is an ending consonant, it becomes an unvoiced alveolar stop, making it identical to tigut and tiot. So all of these are pronounced as hot. Tiot is the last letter with a tensed form, which is 상tiot. 상tiot follows the same E rule, becoming an SH before E, and because tiot is never voiced, the only difference between tiot and 상tiot is that 상tiot is pronounced at a higher pitch. So if this is sasu, that makes this sasu. Sasu, 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 sasu. This is shisha, and this is shisha. Shisha, shisha. Shisha, shisha. Sangtiot can be a final consonant, and it follows the same pronunciation rules as shiot, which means that it also follows the same rules as tigut and tiot. So this would also be pronounced as hot. Alright, so far we've covered 16 consonants. That means we only have 3 left. Now these ones are a little different from the others. I was thinking about making a different category for them, but I mean, the standard rules work enough for these ones. All 3 of these consonants are always voiced, so you could think of them as the always voiced consonants or something like that, whatever works for you. The first one we'll look at on this list is myum. Myum is a bilabial nasal consonant. We already talked about both bilabial and nasal, bilabial meaning both lips, nasal meaning the voice comes out the nose. So you close your mouth and make a humming noise. In English, we write bilabial nasal consonants as the letter M, and that is how this letter is both pronounced and romanized. Because this is always voiced, the pronunciation does not change depending on location. So this is mama, this is momo, this is mimi, this is mima me mumo. As an ending consonant, myum is a bilabial nasal stop. But it is pronounced a little shorter than we would in English. So in English, this would be home, whereas in Korean, this would be home. Home, 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 home. Because myum is always voiced, it will make any standard consonants following it become voiced as well. So this is hamgo rather than hamko, hamgo. And this is samde rather than samte, samde. The next letter we'll look at is nyun. Nyun is very similar to myum, but instead of being a bilabial nasal consonant, it is an alveolar nasal consonant. So you close off your mouth at the alveolar ridge with your tongue and then allow your voice to come out your nose. In English, we call this the letter N, which is how this letter is both romanized and pronounced. Once again, this letter is always voiced, and so the pronunciation doesn't change depending on location. So this is no no, this is nu nu, this is ni ni. And also, as an ending consonant, it is an alveolar nasal stop, and it's a little shorter than an English alveolar nasal stop. So in English, we would say on. In Korean, you would say un. On. Un, on, un. And this would be one, whereas this is one. One, 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 one. And also because of it being voiced, it affects the letters behind it. So this is samde rather than samte, samde. And this is shindi rather than shinti, shindi. All right, we are on to the final letter. This letter is rir, and this is probably the letter which you will have the most difficulty with in the beginning. Rir is an alveolar tap, meaning, once again, you use that alveolar ridge right behind your teeth, and what a tap is you just flick your tongue across it. You can find this sound in some English words, usually based more on dialect and accent, so you could find it in words like coulda, shoulda, woulda, or even in water and better. This sounds something like a mix between an L, an R, and a D, and it is romanized as either an L or an R. You'll find it on the IPA chart as this funny looking lowercase r, and I find it helpful to think of it as being more of a D than an L or an R, because if you think of it as an L or an R, you're going to pronounce it that way, and that's wrong. But if you think of it as a D, you'll get closer to the correct pronunciation. Let's look at some examples to get a better grasp of this letter. Oh, and once again, rir is always voiced, so it won't change pronunciation. So this would be rara, 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 and this would be roro, roro, roro. And now let's look at rir as an ending consonant. When it's at the end, you once again make a quick little flick of your tongue across that alveolar ridge. And so this is ar, ar, ar. This is ur, ur, ur. And this is ur, ur, ur. Like I said, rir is going to be difficult for you for a while. Just keep practicing and you'll get it eventually. All right. So we have finally covered every letter in Hangul. Let's quickly run through the consonants again. So first we have yung and hyut. Then we have kyuk, kyuk, and sungkyuk. Next we have pyup, pyup, and sungpyup. Then we have tigut, tyut, and sungtigut. We have tyut, chyut, and sungcyut, hyut, sunghyut, myum, nyun, and rir. If you work at it, you should be able to master these letters in just a few days. Just keep practicing over and over again, write all of them down, see how many you can remember, and then look up the list again, and you should be able to get it pretty quickly. This is where we're going to leave things for now. In the next lesson, we'll look more into how to put all of these letters together into words, and we'll also look at some strange interactions that some of these letters have with each other, which produce different sounds than what you would expect. If you found this lesson to be helpful, I would appreciate it if you left me a like down below. If you have any questions or suggestions about how I can improve my videos in the future, please leave a comment down below. If you like my lessons and want to keep following along, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, 안녕히 계세요, 여러분!